Coffee itself is a beverage that has been existing for centuries, as far back in Ethiopia from 575 AD. Nobody would believe it would get to the extent of elephant poop. I know you might be wondering, what kind of ridiculous statement is that? Well, guess you're about to find out. We have so many variants of coffees. From Americano, cappuccino, cafe macchiato, flat white, espresso, affogato and mocha, and even way more. In fact, guys, let me know in the comments your fave brand, type of coffee. Well, now let's find out the elephant poop coffee and why it's a thing.
Broaden your horizon by subscribing and becoming part of this family. Leave a like on this video as we take you through a wonderful tour on the mind-blowing events that played out at that period in time.
Well, now let's find out the elephant poop coffee and why it's a thing. You see, Black Ivory Coffee is a brand of coffee produced by the Black Ivory Coffee Company Ltd in northern Thailand from Arabica coffee beans consumed by elephants and collected from their waste. The taste of Black Ivory coffee is influenced by elephants' digestive enzymes, which break down the coffee's protein. The company claims to rescue elephants from tourist trade abuse.
Hii ndio kahawa yenye thamani na adimu zaidi duniani. Sababu yake ni kwa kuwa kumeng'enywa na tembo. Kahawa hii aina ya Arabica kutokea Thailand huanza kwa kuliwa, kumeng'enywa na kisha kutolewa katika njia ya kinyesi cha tembo. Baada ya hapo huoshwa na kuanikwa, kisha kupakiwa tayari kwa ajili ya kuwafikia wateja. Kikombe kimoja huuzwa mpaka $100 na kilo moja huenda mpaka $2,000, yani shilingi milioni 4. Je, unatamani kujaribu kahawa kutoka kwenye kinyesi cha tembo? Like, tuchati kwenye comments na usisahau.
Black Ivory coffee is among the world's most expensive coffees, at $2,000 per kilogram. The producer sells the coffee to select luxury hotels, where it is sold at $50 per cup. The coffee can also be purchased online. You can check the link in the description to purchase it. The coffee product in 2021 was 215 kilograms. The supply of Black Ivory coffee depends on the availability of coffee cherries, the appetite of the elephants, the number of beans destroyed through chewing of the beans, and the ability of the mahouts and their wives to recover intact beans. The high price of the product is largely due to the large number of coffee cherries needed to produce the finished product. 33 kilograms, 72 pounds, of raw coffee cherries results in 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds, 1,000 grams, 35 ounces of the finished product. Imagine the insane loss and wastage all in the bid to make the finished product, aka Black Ivory coffee. Well, why do so much coffee beans gets wasted? This is because most of the beans are not recoverable as they are chewed by the elephants, become fragmented, or are lost in the bush after being excreted. This coffee was first produced by Black Ivory Coffee Company Limited at the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation in Chiang Saen, an elephant refuge that cares for rescued elephants. Now, Black Ivory Coffee no longer produces in the Golden Triangle, but in Surin Province in northeast Thailand. Approximately 20 elephants at the foundation produce the coffee. 8% of Black Ivory Coffee Company's sales are donated to the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation, which is used to fund the elephants' health care. The consumption of the coffee cherries does not adversely affect the elephants, and veterinary tests concluded that caffeine is not absorbed from the coffee cherries they consume. This is interesting, right? Well, we still have more unbelievable coffee types that well exist from an animal's excreta. Not an elephant this time. We're talking about Kopi Luwak, also known as civet coffee. This is a coffee that consists of partially digested coffee cherries, which have been eaten and defecated by the Asian pond civet. This is what the animal looks like. The cherries are fermented as they pass through a civet's intestines, and after being defecated with other fecal matter, they are collected. Asian palm civets are increasingly caught in the wild and traded for this purpose. The beans from droppings of the Asian palm civet are collected from the forest floor and cleaned. Producers of the coffee beans argue that the process may improve coffee through two mechanisms: selection, where civets choose to eat only certain cherries, and digestion, where biological or chemical mechanisms in the animal's digestive tracts alter the composition of the coffee cherries. The traditional method of collecting feces from wild Asian palm civets has given way to an intensive farming method, in which the palm civets are kept in battery cages and are force-fed the cherries. This method of production has raised ethical concerns about the treatment of civets and the conditions they are made to live in, which include isolation, poor diet, small cages, and a high mortality rate. Although kopi luwak is a form of processing rather than a variety of coffee, it has been called one of the most expensive coffees in the world, with retail prices reaching $100 per kilogram for farmed beans and $1,300 per kilogram for wild collected beans. Another epithet given to it is that it is the Holy Grail of coffees. The origin of kopi luwak is closely connected to the history of coffee production in Indonesia. Dutch colonialists established coffee plantations in Indonesia and imported beans from Yemen. In the 19th century, farmers in central Java started to brew and drink coffee from excreted beans collected at their plantations. The taste of kopi luwak varies with the type and origin of excreted beans, processing, roasting, aging, and brewing. The ability of the civet to select its berries, and other aspects of the civet's diet and health, like stress levels, may also influence the processing and hence taste. Within the coffee industry, kopi luwak is widely regarded as a gimmick or novelty item. The Specialty Coffee Association of America, SCA, states that there is a general consensus within the industry: it just tastes bad. A coffee professional compared the same beans with, and without the kopi luwak process, using a rigorous coffee cupping evaluation. He concluded, it was apparent that luwak coffee sold for the story, not superior quality. Using the SCA cupping scale, the luwak scored 2 points below the lowest of the other three coffees. It would appear that the luwak processing diminishes good acidity and flavor and adds smoothness to the body, which is what many people seem to note as a positive to the coffee. Professional coffee tasters were able to distinguish kopi luwak from other coffee samples, but remarked that it tasted thin. Some critics claim more generally that kopi luwak is simply bad coffee, purchased for novelty rather than taste. A food writer reviewed kopi luwak available to American consumers and concluded, it tasted just like Folgers, stale, lifeless, petrified dinosaur droppings steeped in bathtub water. I couldn't finish it. Several commercial processes attempt to replicate the digestive process of the civets without animal involvement. Researchers with the University of Florida have been issued with a patent for one such process. Brooklyn-based food startup Afiner has also developed a patented fermentation technology that reproduces some of the taste aspects of kopi luwak while improving coffee bean taste and nutritional profile. Vietnamese companies sell an imitation kopi luwak, made using an enzyme soak which they claim replicates the civet's digestive process. Do you people think this would beat the original kopi luwak taste? Imitations has several motivations. What do you think is behind these imitations? Well, the high price of kopi luwak drives the search for a way to produce kopi luwak in large quantities. Kopi luwak production involves a great deal of labor, whether farmed or wild gathered. The small production quantity and the labor involved in production contribute to the coffee's high cost. The imitation may be a response to the decrease in the civet population. Growing numbers of intensive civet farms have been established and are operated in Southeast Asia, confining tens of thousands of animals to live in battery cages and be force-fed. The conditions are awful, much like battery chickens, said Chris Shepard, Deputy Regional Director of Traffic in Southeast Asia. The civets are taken from the wild and have to endure horrific conditions. They fight to stay together, but they are separated and have to bear a very poor diet in very small cages. There is a high mortality rate, and for some species of civet, there's a real conservation risk. It is spiraling out of control. The trade in palm civets for the production of kopi luwak may constitute a significant threat to wild populations. In 2013, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA, investigators found wild-caught civets on farms in Indonesia and the Philippines. They were deprived of exercise, proper diet, and space. Video footage from the investigation shows abnormal behaviors such as repeated pacing, circling, or biting the bars of their cages. The animals often lose their fur. A BBC investigation revealed similar conditions. Farmers using caged palm civets in North Sumatra confirmed that they supplied kopi luwak beans to exporters whose produce ends up in Europe and Asia. Tony Wild, the coffee executive responsible for bringing kopi luwak to the Western world, has stated he no longer supports using kopi luwak due to animal cruelty and launched a campaign called Cut the Crap to halt the use of kopi luwak. Investigations by PETA and the BBC found fraud to be rife in the kopi luwak industry, with producers willing to label coffee from caged civets with a wild-sourced or similar label. Genuine kopi luwak from wild civets is difficult to purchase in Indonesia, and proving it is not fake is very difficult. There is little enforcement regarding use of the name kopi luwak. And there's even a local cheap coffee brand name, Luwak, which costs under $3 per kilogram, but is occasionally sold online under the guise of real kopi luwak. Coffee beans can be seeded with the same microbes as in civet gut to produce the same coffee flavor without having to deal with civet excrement. The binturong, also known as bear cat, is also sometimes kept captive for production of kopi luwak. There are reports of a kopi luwak type process occurring naturally with muntjac and birds. Bat coffee is another variation that is in demand. Bats feed on the ripest coffee and fruits and spit out the seeds. These seeds are dried and processed to make coffee with a slight fruity flavor. What is bat spit coffee? Bat spit coffee is a fairly recent phenomenon coming out of Madagascar, a country not traditionally known for any sort of high-end coffee production. How it works? Technically, when wild bats chew the ripe coffee berries, it results in a chemical reaction between their digestive fluids and outside air, which further leaves behind a uniquely smooth flavor on the beans. According to media report, this coffee stays for a longer time in your mouth, and it is not at all acidic. Is it expensive? According to coffee experts, Bourbon Point sells domestically at $101 per pound, 200 euros per kilogram, which is 50 times more than the price of commodity-grade coffee. It's the bat spit that makes it an expensive affair. Who introduced this coffee variation? It's the brainchild of farmer and agricultural entrepreneur Jacques Ramarla, who 2 years ago reintroduced Bourbon Point to beans after observing them nibbling the best beans. At present, Ramarla works with around 90 farmers for production and marketing of the coffee beans. This year they produced 2 tons of coffee and have the target to produce 20 tons by 2021. We still have an animal excreta beverage that exists. Panda tea or panda dung tea, produced in the Yin mountainous region of Sichuan, China, is a type of tea fertilized by the dung of pandas. When it officially went on the market in April 2012, it was reputedly the world's most expensive tea with 50 grams, approximately 16 cups of tea, sold for $3,500, 2,200 pounds, or about $200, 130 pounds, a cup. And Yenshur, a local panda tea entrepreneur, argues that the tea is healthy, given that pandas only consume wild bamboo and absorb only about 30% of the nutrients, and that it encourages the culture of recycling and using organic fertilizers. Well, this concludes our video, guys. If you enjoyed it, leave a like on this video. Don't forget to check out our uploads for other interesting and controversial drink history. Bye!